Have you ever felt like there is something invisible quietly changing your life? Not the obvious upheavals in the outside world, but a silent wave of transformation, right inside yourself. A vague yet unmistakable feeling, as if the universe is whispering, "Get ready, something big is coming." If you're going through those silent moments between the old and new versions of yourself, this could be the sign. Stay until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear might not be a coincidence. And if you see yourself in these words, don't forget to hit subscribe and follow. Who knows, this might be the moment you realize the greater mission the universe has for you. You might not see it, at least not yet, but you are being shaped, little by little. Not to become someone more perfect by the world's standards, but to become more true to yourself. The silence you're experiencing is not accidental. It is a sacred pause for you to hear the call within. When everything familiar seems to crack or fade away, it's not because you are losing everything. It's because you are stepping into a space where everything will begin again, but this time, from your true essence. In that moment, you may feel lost. No one tells you that awakening is sometimes not a sudden bright light, but the feeling of drifting between two shores. And that is perfectly okay. Because that's when you are no longer bound by old roles, old expectations, outdated identities. It is the moment you stand in the void, where the old has dissolved, and the new has yet to take full shape. It is the silent blooming of the soul. If you feel yourself drifting away from those once close, from familiar environments, know that it is not loneliness, but a frequency adjustment. You are not abandoned, you are being guided. The universe does not take anything away without replacing it with something more fitting. And that something more fitting, even if you don't see it yet, is moving toward you, in perfect sacred rhythm. This is not the time to chase, but the time to relax and allow. Allow yourself to be empty to receive the new. Allow your heart to open, not to be filled with something, but to connect with what truly resonates. You are transforming. You are not losing, you are becoming. And this becoming, though slow and unclear, is bringing you closer to the radiant version of yourself you never dared to imagine. Trust the quiet impulses within you. Listen to that seemingly small whisper, for it may be the voice of the universe, gently guiding you. If you feel this, if your heart resonates with these words, stay with this journey until the end. And don't forget to subscribe and follow, because perhaps what you're seeking is also seeking you. And this is just the beginning. And then, one morning, you wake up no longer feeling the need to fight to prove anything. The urgency softens. You no longer try to race against time or please expectations that no longer belong to you. There is a quiet relief spreading, as if you have stepped out of a heavy cloak sewn from all the shoulds, musts, rights, and wrongs. And in that simplicity, you begin to see yourself more clearly, not as a polished version made to fit, but as yourself, raw, honest, and growing. You accept that some days will be uncertain, that some crossroads will have no signposts, and that you won't always have the answers. But instead of fearing that emptiness, you begin to trust it. You start to understand that ambiguity is not the enemy, but the necessary space for miracles to unfold. It is the magical moment between letting go and not yet holding on, where potential lies dormant, waiting to be awakened by faith. And in that faith, you also begin to listen more deeply to yourself. Not the noise of the outside world, but the whisper of your soul, a gentle yet determined voice guiding your way. You begin to adjust your rhythm of life, moving slower, more intentionally. Superficial relationships fade away, not with conflict, but with mature silence. You no longer need to fight for a place in spaces that were never meant for you. You are rebuilding the home of yourself, grounded in self-understanding and compassion. And this is not a process of isolation. It is a process of selection. What is real stays. What needs to go will naturally withdraw. And you no longer suffer from that, because you have begun to live from a place within, a place no one else can reach, yet everything is created from there. When you live from that place, every choice comes from harmony, not lack. Every decision flows from love, not fear. You begin to realize that this journey is not about becoming someone else, but about returning to yourself. And that path home, though sometimes lonely, holds all you have ever sought outside: peace, acceptance, and truth. Because in the end, you don't need to become anyone else. You just need to dare to be yourself, whole, deep, and honest. And that is the greatest miracle. The third sign, you begin to feel everything slipping away, things you once held dear but can no longer grasp. It's no longer a struggle between the old and the new, but a strange stillness between two breaths. You no longer chase what once felt necessary to prove something. Instead, you start to gently let go, not because you don't care, but because you've learned to let things come to you on their own frequency. This transition is subtle. It comes without loud noise or clear signs, yet deep inside, you sense an unfolding alignment. Relationships that once excited you now feel faded. Environments that once thrilled you now feel suffocating. And instead of reacting with resistance, you begin to observe with compassion. You realize that not everything that drifts away is a loss. Some things simply have completed their journey in your life. And in that silence, you gradually understand that peace does not come from having everything, but from no longer being bound by everything. You are learning to stand still without being swept away. No more conversations to explain yourself. No more expectations for others to understand you. No more efforts to please or prove. Everything becomes clear, not through logic, but through the frequency of feeling. What no longer fits naturally falls away. What truly belongs to you stays, without force, without struggle. You are experiencing a silent kind of rebirth. A process where you not only change how you live, but how you show up. You no longer live by ego, but by awareness. And this opens a new space within you. A space to receive what is deeper, more authentic, and whole. As you enter this phase, you are no longer drawn to external noise. You begin to turn toward stillness, toward things with roots. The miracle is, you don't need to know exactly what is coming. You only need to be ready. And you are ready because you have let go. Let go to become whole. Let go to create space. Let go to return to yourself. And this is not a sign of an ending. It is the sacred sign of a true beginning. There will come a time when you realize that the silence you once thought was emptiness is actually the firmest foundation for rebirth. No longer a place to escape or a frightening stagnation, the stillness now becomes a sacred space, where the old ego is gently unraveled and your true self begins to emerge. You no longer seek validation from outside. You start to trust your own rhythm, the gentle yet steadfast voice rising from the deepest part of your soul. What once confused you, the slammed doors, missed opportunities, drifting relationships, now become silent teachers, reminding you that not everything that is lost is truly gone. And then one day, when you stop resisting the pause, a gentle shift begins to happen. It's not a dramatic twist, no fireworks, no applause. Just a feeling, a deep awareness that you are exactly where you need to be, even if the outside world remains unchanged. You realize you don't need proof to know you're growing. The peace within you is the proof. It's the kind of peace untouched by outcomes, unaffected by praise or criticism. It is the peace that comes only when you stop trying to become something and instead simply are. The deepest transformation is not noisy. It doesn't require a stage. It unfolds quietly and steadily, in mornings when you wake without heaviness, in nights when you no longer fight with sleep, in moments when you look in the mirror and smile at yourself. You no longer live to prove anything. You live to experience the sacredness life unfolds with each day, each breath. And in that presence, the universe begins to respond differently, not with pressure, but with resonance. The things that truly belong to you start to come your way, not because you chase them, but because you have become the one they seek. You no longer chase the current. You have become the current. At some point, you stop seeing the pause as an intruder and begin to embrace it as a silent teacher. You no longer try to overcome it but start stepping into it with an open heart and a mind ready to listen. Because you realize that the most precious things in life don't come from running fast, but from daring to stand still long enough to hear the whispers of your own soul. In that stillness, you recognize that you are not falling behind. You are simply moving to a different rhythm, the rhythm of true growth. You learn to stop searching for answers outside. Instead, you turn inward, to the place that once scared you, the quiet space between life stages, where there are no maps, no signs, just you and the ambiguity of the journey. But surprisingly, that place of nothingness becomes the beginning of everything. That space is no longer loneliness. It becomes a profound intimacy with yourself, a new, deep relationship where you stop trying to be someone else and simply become yourself. You no longer push yourself to produce value to feel worthy. You no longer chase achievements to confirm your existence. Now you begin to live with a new rhythm, the rhythm of trust. The trust that you are being guided even when the destination is unseen. The trust that what is unfolding within you is no less valuable, perhaps even more important, than any external result. You sense that you are being reborn, not hurriedly, but subtly and authentically. And as you settle into that stillness, something begins to shift. Not in the world around you, but in the way you interact with it. You no longer step into life with a mindset of competition or proof. You step forth with a calm inner strength, with a clarity that lets all that does not belong to you fall away effortlessly. You don't need to fight. Your presence is the strongest voice. In that silence, you are not separate from the flow of life. You are the flow. Because you have understood, a pause is not a break. It is the phase where the universe, with vast and silent love, prepares you for a completely new beginning. A beginning that demands you to truly be yourself. Not an old version renewed, but you, with a bare heart, no defenses, no imposed expectations. You, who have learned to stand still amid the storm, and from there, become the center of the peace life is seeking. When the sensitivity within you is honed to the point of nearly touching pure intuition, you begin to understand that not everything needs to be explained. Some feelings come and go like the wind, leaving no explanation behind, only gratitude, because you were quiet enough to listen. And in that silence, another sign appears. You no longer need external validation to feel certain about your path. An inner nod, an inexplicable sense of rightness, becomes the most reliable guidance. You stop searching for proof to begin, because you realize that the inner urge doesn't have to be logical to be true. That urge, whether gentle or intense, is a part of you leading the rest. And you learn to trust it. You start moving more by inspiration than by plan. You begin to curate your space, the people around you, and your experiences according to energy frequencies rather than outward appearances. The next sign is a withdrawal from the usual pace of life. It's not that you intentionally isolate yourself, but a part of you is retreating to recover, to gather strength, and to prepare for a greater shift. When you find yourself losing interest in repetitive conversations, old roles, or noisy events, it's not because you're falling behind. It's because you're syncing with a new frequency. And that sync, as you begin to notice, brings something gentle yet profound, peace. A kind of peace that doesn't come from control, but from allowance. You no longer try to control everything to feel safe. You start allowing things to unfold because you trust that what is meant for you will find its way, without force. And in that trust, you see the beauty of the unknown. You no longer fear the uncertainty because you feel the pulse of something being formed beneath all that ambiguity. Now you understand that a plan isn't always necessary. Sometimes, all it takes is a quiet commitment to yourself, I am ready. And that readiness doesn't come from knowing all the answers. It comes from having learned to listen to yourself in every silent moment. That's when you begin not just to live, but to feel. Not just to exist, but to resonate. And that is where everything begins. And then you realize the strangeness isn't in the world around you. It lies in the awakening within yourself. When you stop resisting the flow of life, when you no longer try to control or explain every passing emotion, you begin to truly live. Not just live in the usual sense, but live with full presence. You don't just see things more clearly, you begin to hear sounds that were once unheard. The sound of truth, of connection, of messages from your own soul. That is the moment you stop seeking applause from the outside to confirm your worth. You start to trust the silence. Trust the deep feeling in your heart when you're walking the right path, even if no one else sees it. And that silence is not emptiness, it is space. Space for you to hear yourself, to feel your own rhythm, undisturbed by expectations or fear. You begin to distinguish more clearly between what is real and what is familiar, between comfort and what is truly right, between things that bring temporary ease and those that nurture your soul long-term. And through this process, you become quietly courageous. Not the courage to fight, but the courage to let go. Letting go of the things that once defined you. Old stories, relationships that no longer resonate, dreams that no longer reflect who you are now. You may no longer be the person you once thought you would become, but instead, you are becoming yourself, not a version edited to fit society's mold, but your original, authentic self, full of feeling and depth. And this is not the end of the journey. This is the threshold. You stand at the threshold of a new life, where intuition is valued as much as reason, where connection matters more than control, and where authenticity is no longer a luxury but a necessity. The universe is not testing you. It is giving you an opportunity to become a bearer of light, not through words, but through presence. You don't need to strive to shine. You simply need to stop hiding your true light. The fifth sign doesn't appear amidst noise, but in the moment you finally stop trying to be a more acceptable version of yourself. When you pause, not because you've given up, but because you've at last stopped fighting against the true flow of who you are. You no longer feel the need to please everyone, to have the right answers, or to follow the path most traveled. Instead, you begin to feel comfortable with your imperfections. You don't need everything to be perfect to feel whole, nor do you need every relationship to be maintained to prove your worth. The peace within you no longer depends on external approval. And from that place, a miracle begins to unfold. You stop defining yourself by what you've lost, endured, or been rejected by. You begin to clearly see that you are not your wounds. You are the way you chose to rise from those wounds. You are the kindness you've continuously given, even when the world around you grew cold. You are every step you've taken forward, even when no one was watching. And when you realize this, you no longer feel the need to argue to be understood, because now you understand yourself, and that is enough. You also start to realize that not everyone who leaves is a loss. Some absences are actually gifts, spaces opened up for real light to shine through. You stop holding on to connections that require you to shrink yourself. You choose honest solitude over false presence. Not because you've become harsh, but because you understand that the quietness within your heart is worth more than any meaningless noise. Gradually you slow down. Not because you've weakened, but because you've learned how to be deeply present. You no longer need to run. No need to prove anything. No need to strain yourself. You can simply sit in an ordinary day, listen to birds singing, watch sunlight filter through leaves, and feel a deep gratitude that brings tears to your eyes. Nothing grand is happening, and that is the miracle. Because you've finally learned how to love life without needing a reason. And in that stillness, you begin to hear a call, not from outside, but from within. A gentle call you had long tried to ignore. It tells you that you don't need to become anything other than yourself. That purpose isn't a destination, but the way you show up in every moment. That healing doesn't come from doing more, but from letting go of what you no longer need to carry. This isn't a change born from a momentary decision. It is a quiet transformation, a return without noise. But it is so powerful that once you feel it, you can never go back to the old ways. Not because you can't, but because you no longer want to. Because you've begun living with the truth of your soul, and nothing else matters more than that. And when you truly sit with yourself in a stillness no longer confused with loneliness, you realize a miracle. You don't need to become anything else. No need to win over anyone. No need to chase after any ideal. No need to fix or beautify your past version to please others. You are here, as yourself, and that is enough. This feeling doesn't come as a dramatic declaration of confidence, but seeps in like a gentle, persistent mist. You accept yourself not because you are perfect, but because you've been through too much to still deny who you are. You begin to understand that no one owes you recognition. No one needs to understand the wounds you carry or the battles you've silently endured. And you no longer need them to understand. Because now, the only validation you need is from within. A gentle nod from a soul that has passed through fire and still chooses love. Love is not weakness, but the greatest strength you can carry. It helps you stand firm without strain. It gives you the power to say no decisively and say yes wholeheartedly. The deeper you go inside yourself, the clearer you see that life is never just about goals to achieve or roles to play. It is about presence, whole, authentic, and unhurried presence. You begin to notice moments that seem small, a morning light filtering through the curtains, a sincere smile, a complete silence, holding a sacredness you once overlooked. And in each of those moments, there is a life whispering, "This is what truly matters." You stop resisting the emotions you once despised. Sadness is no longer the enemy. Fear is no longer proof of weakness. Every feeling becomes a companion, coming to teach you something, then quietly leaving when the lesson is done. You are no longer consumed by identifying with them. You are not the anger, you are not the pain. You are the observer learning to love each broken piece. At the intersection of pain and understanding, of brokenness and forgiveness, you see that you have changed. No longer someone seeking reasons to be worthy, but someone who knows they have always been worthy, just needed time to see it. And strangely, when you stop trying to do right, to be loved, you start living as if you have always been loved, unconditionally. That is liberation. This is no longer a journey to become someone else. It is a journey home to the deepest, truest, and fullest part of yourself. And from there, you no longer need to search for miracles far away. You are the miracle. You always have been. You have just remembered. You begin to realize that change does not always have to be understood through great upheavals or dramatic turning points in life. Instead, it hides within small moments, in the deep silence of the soul that you can truly feel only when you pause and listen. You no longer need to strive to control or arrange everything according to your will, because now you understand that the truth inside you is your true compass. Your soul is no longer busy chasing after things outside. Instead, it moves in subtle harmony with yourself. The new vibration you feel is a higher frequency of presence. Not haste or pressure, but steadiness, stillness, and peace. It cannot be seen with the naked eye, nor measured by external success or the praise of others. This is a spiritual state, where you feel in tune with the flow of life, where no matter what happens, nothing can take away your inner balance. You no longer need to chase after distant ideals or try to prove something to the world, because you know your worth does not come from outside but springs from within you. The miracle of this vibration is that it begins to create attraction, not the attraction of desire or ambition, but the attraction of a person living authentically, with sincerity and wholeness. Others can sense this even when you say nothing, and that is what naturally brings new opportunities, fitting relationships, and meaningful encounters to you. You no longer have to try. Your presence alone is enough to draw everything you truly need. It might be a new friend, a new job, an important event, or simply a shared glance from others walking the same path of growth. These experiences do not come as rewards for waiting or sacrifice, but as the inevitable result of integration and inner maturity. You no longer live in fear of the future or regret over the past. Instead, you live in the present, one breath at a time, one step at a time, with gratitude and respect for yourself. This is not surrender, but complete acceptance. A kind of acceptance that does not make you weaker but, on the contrary, makes you stronger than ever. And it is this strength that makes you no longer afraid of change or challenges. When the universe sends new opportunities your way, you welcome them with openness and absolute trust. You know that each path, however vague or uncertain it may seem, is part of the greater journey you are on. You don't need to understand everything immediately, you only need to walk with faith that every step is right because it comes from sincerity and the maturity you already hold within. When you live in this state, everything outside begins to reflect the peace and order you have found within. Life is no longer a series of struggles and insecurities but becomes a harmonious symphony, where you are the conductor leading your own notes. You are no longer a seeker of something far away but a creator of value and meaning right here, in this very moment. This subtle change in your inner vibration is the clearest sign that you have matured spiritually and are ready to welcome the next miracles in life. You are no longer caught in the whirlpool of anxiety or unanswered questions. Instead, you walk with confidence and serenity, knowing that no matter how things change, you will still hold on to yourself, the one who has experienced, learned, and continues to move forward with peace in your soul. And in that peace, you are truly free. Free from the invisible ties of expectations, doubt, and fear. You are free to be yourself, live your way, and embrace life with all it brings, not hurriedly, not forcefully, but with full presence and deep love for yourself and the world around you. You no longer have to strain yourself in invisible battles to prove yourself to the outside world. Now, everything is no longer a hurried race, no longer a compulsion or invisible pressure weighing you down. You are living with a different mindset, the mindset of someone who has found peace within themselves, not swayed by things that don't belong to them. This doesn't come from easy surrender or giving up, but from a deep awareness that life is truly not something to chase after, but something to experience, to feel, and to be present in every moment. The new vibration you carry in your soul is not just a temporary state but a fundamental shift, a step forward in your inner growth. It is like a pure energy flowing into every corner of your mind, erasing the clutter, the unnecessary noise, so you can hear more clearly the true voice from within. You are no longer swept away by others' expectations, no longer entangled in old prejudices or conditions that once seemed inseparable. And it is in that stillness that you begin to feel a fresh strength, not loud or ostentatious but profoundly sincere. This strength does not come from controlling everything, but from being able to accept and fully live with what you have, what you are. You are no longer afraid of the unknown, nor forcing yourself to become someone else, but simply becoming the most authentic version of yourself, a complete person with both light and shadow, joy and sorrow, strength and moments of vulnerability. When you step into this state, everything around you begins to reflect that change. Relationships are no longer about dependency or expectations, but about genuine resonance between kindred souls. Opportunities arise not from rushing to pursue, but as natural connections, like pieces fitting perfectly into the bigger picture of life. You realize everything is moving in its own way, not through forced control, but through the smooth unity between you and the flow of the universe. This unity brings clarity, a gentle but powerful light illuminating the hidden corners of your soul. You are no longer confused or lost in unanswered questions. Instead, you know that everything is happening at the right time and in the right way, and all you need to do is keep walking forward with firm trust. You don't have to understand everything immediately because the not knowing is part of the journey of discovery and growth. This is also when you realize that maturity is not perfection but acceptance. Acceptance of limitations, mistakes, and imperfections in yourself and life. Acceptance that not everyone will understand, accompany, or stay. But most importantly, you remain loyal to yourself, maintaining the connection to your inner source, an inexhaustible energy that flows continuously, guiding you to what is most authentic. And the miracle is that when you live with that truth, when you no longer try to build or maintain false masks, you naturally attract the right people and experiences, like a gentle yet lasting magic. Meetings may be small but contain transformative power, seemingly ordinary opportunities become turning points, and you realize you are not alone on this journey. Because now, you understand that life is not about seeking something outside, but discovering and living with what is already within you, peace, stability, and unbound freedom. You are ready to welcome the best things to come, not by chasing or longing, but through full presence and the deep vibration of an awakened soul. And that is the most wonderful thing. You don't have to go far to find happiness or success because it all begins inside, right at this moment, with yourself, in your breath, in the light, and in the profound stillness of your soul. That is the sign that you are ready for a new life, a new journey, a return to yourself that nothing can stop.